Hi guys, Ted Elsner, Sacramento Historical Fencing Academy. So there is a debate going around on Facebook and the internet right now about an interpretation of silver's true times. Now, this is a debate that comes up, I don't know, fairly regularly. There's different interpretations on it. And it's something that I wanted to weigh in on today as well, because it really is kind of an interesting subject that speaks to a question that's broader than just silver. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's back up, okay? I don't actually want to talk about silver's take on true times per se. Rather, what I want to look at is the idea that Lichtenauer, the RDL tradition, really is doing something so fundamentally different than the rest of European fencing, realistically. If we look at early manuscripts, the 133, the Tower Effect book as it's sometimes known, or any of Fiore's work, one of the things that we find in those works is an initial preference for crossing, right? 133, the whole idea in that sword and buckler system is that you're initially going to lay siege to your opponent's sword before directly attacking to the body. You're never going to, attack straight in. You always want to make sure to find their blade first. Similarly, Fiore starts all of his plays in all of his weapons from the crossings, right? He's never delivering a direct attack straight to his opponent. He's always going to start from a place that's safe for him to begin his work from. And that place is a lot closer than you might expect it to be. So we have those two early sources, right? Then we spring forward a couple hundred years and we look at the later sources in both Germany and in the Italian traditions, right? The Germanese, I should say. So Meyer, my boy, is all about provoking and taking before you hit. In particular, he has a rule in his Rostock manuscript that before we're ever going to cut to the body or to the person, we're going to find their blade first. We're going to make ourselves secure with parrying and gaining their blade, which means that we have to move into measure and we have to get to a place where it is safe for us to then strike. And we'll come back and talk about that more in a future video as well. When we look over at the Bolognese tradition, same thing. Provocations are a major element of allowing you to move safely, basically in preparation, and get in close enough to be able to attack. Even modern fencing, right, has preparations. It has actions that allow us to move safely into distance so that then we can deliver our attack to the opponent. Okay, so we've got systems in both Germany and Italy, again, Germany and the Italys, I don't want to be pedantic about it, before the RDL tradition. And then we have traditions both in, again, the Italys and in the Germanys, well, after the RDL tradition, that tell us to gain the blade and only then attack to the body. But a common interpretation of the Lichtenauer tradition is that we should be going straight in as though we're pulled by a string to our target. So this actually poses a really interesting, to me, question. It's one of two things. Either the Lichtenauer tradition as defined by the RDL glosses is doing something totally different, right? It's attacking straight to the target and ignoring all of those preparatory motions and getting in there tight and fast and dangerously so against opponents that maybe have completely different expectations, right? If my expectation is that you're going to find my blade first before you launch any attack directly at me, and you instead just do something that, from my standpoint, is completely suicidal and attack straight at me, oh my God, right? Like, that's going to blow my mind. So that's one possibility, that the RDL tradition really is doing something fundamentally different. And by that interpretation, if that's the case, then Meyer not part of the RDL tradition, right? Because he wants you to gain the blade. He's definitely tied into the rest of the European tradition. So that's one possibility. But the other side of that, thank you, dear, is the opposite, that people are misinterpreting the RDL tradition and they're misreading what the advice actually is. So what else is a Zorn Ort but a taker that gains you the place as an opponent moves in on you, and then a hitter, right? To put it into two different sets of terms, right? I take with the Zorn and then I hit with the Ort. Or, if we want to go and talk about silver, I gain the place by your movement in and I ward against it, I guard against it by coming into the Zorn, which we know in Meyer's time will be known as the gerade Versetzung, the straight parrying, which sounds an awfully lot like a position that we would call a ward in English, a guarding position, if you will, and then hit. So, which is it, right? Is the RDL tradition doing something completely novel, and that's what sets it apart? Or are we misinterpreting what we're being told in the RDL tradition? And instead, we should be looking at it in terms of the same thing we see everywhere else. How do we get to the place, it's the only part of silver that I really like, where we can then safely attack our opponent, right? Are the Meisterhau used then to gain that place and threaten our opponent? And certainly if they do nothing, to put us in a distance where once I've struck in, I can now strike again just by moving my hand. So the initial action is actually a Versetzen, a parrying, the four settings aside, the Versetzen, right? The laying siege by coming into a parry or a ward. Just something to think about. I have my personal thoughts and feelings on this particular subject. Maybe you do as well. Leave them down in the comments, guys. And as always, hit a like button, subscribe to us. We're trying to grow the channel, so maybe tell some of your friends, share us on Facebook. You know, new videos coming out every single day, so we hope to see you, visit us again soon. Thanks.